Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 2 who would like to talk about values and teacher development. This theme is located in chapter 6 of the book. Let's get to know what teacher development is. Teacher development can be defined as something done by teacher educators and teacher trainers for working teachers. It usually takes form in in-service workshops, courses, summer institutes, and the like. In Europe, teacher development is defined as something that teachers themselves undertake and that is guided by the teachers concerned. In this discussion, the definition combines these two definitions. This discussion will have five main focus. The first is practical or self-reflection to support the teacher development, and then cognitive, such as the teaching issue and workshop, and then understanding learners, metacognitive or self-awareness, and critical or rational in teacher development. The first sub-theme of this discussion lies on the teacher development. This framework is used to conduct the interview with the teachers. It includes what teaching practices they discuss with the principals, with the parents of the student, and with their peer. The second is what kind of feedback they get and how they can deal with the feedback. Here is the result of the interview with the teacher, in which she said that she ever asked one of the senior in one of her teaching, and the feedback is that the teacher put much attention to the active one and seemed to neglect the silent one. Thus, the feedback that the teacher got is that the teacher should manage how to deal with the superior students and to treat the silent students well without neglecting the active one. And then to deal with this feedback, in the next teaching, she tried to involve more the silent students. Before she decided to do that, she conducted a research by Googling it, how the way to solve this situation. This feedback affect the teacher, the way of the teacher teaching a lot because she can find how to deal with this condition. And now she has a principle that she has to make sure that all the students learn well. This feedback is effective to support the teacher development. They are supported by the study conducted by Fairlings in 2012. Jackson said that the evidence of teacher development, there should be a changes. When there is no change, there is no development. In this case, we can see that there is a changes in the teaching practice, that the teacher, the observer, addressing what they see as a weak point in their teaching, and the teacher being observed, introducing new way of doing all things in the next teaching. So the teacher here has an effort to improve the weakness of her teaching. This also changes the values that the teacher holds. This case proves that the value held by the teacher shift, that the teacher more realized that the students is different, so it should be treated differently in order to make the student learn and take part in the teaching and learning process well. So it's shift from the view that the teacher, all the students should be treated the same. Now it's shift to the view that different students should be treated differently. The next results of the interview related to the feedback that comes from the principals. The feedback that the teacher got from the headmaster of the school is that the teacher should improve the students' mastery of English. I think that is the quite hard. And then to add more varied learning methods to attract the students' interest in learning. And then to deal with the feedback, the teacher conducted a special program in the Firm of English community. This program is held outside the hours to improve the quality of students' mastery and understanding of English. The teacher said that so far the students have become more enthusiastic in following the lesson, and it makes the teacher realize that teaching is not a matter of transferring knowledge merely, but the teacher needs to have a close relationship to the students as well, and need more time for the new knowledge to be transferred well. And the interesting thing that I found here is that Even though this program takes many effort and time for the teacher, and even though he has no additional income for conducting this kind of program, the teacher says that she is well paid by her satisfaction of teaching, that she can build a good relationship with the students and the improvement of student enthusiasm in the teaching and learning process. Now we go to the discussion. It is stated that principals are important contributors to the teacher professional development. It is stated in Bredesen and Johansson in 2000 that highly effective principals work to move teachers toward greater levels of independence and professional autonomy. From this interview, the teacher has an autonomy of what she should do to improve their teaching. In that, she decided to give additional course in the form of English community. It also changed the teaching practices that the teacher took. That is by the introduction of new course in the form of English community is the evidence that teacher move forward from the conventional to the new teaching approach, in which it needs a lot of effort, including what the programs related with the students, the time, the material given, the concept of the course. Thus, the teacher development changes through their teaching approach and practice.
My name is Ginan Muhammad. I would like to continue the presentation. It's about the teacher professional development, and my topic is about cognitive. This element is concerned with teachers' attempts aimed at professional development, conducting small-scale classroom research projects or action research, attending conferences and workshops related to one's field of study, and reading the professional literature are among the behaviors included in this domain. We go to interview question number one by asking the teacher, have you been participating in teacher professional development? And here the result, and I'll quote, I have participated a few months ago in my own school, more precisely in February 2020. I attended a national teacher training and national workshop from Kemdikbud in Jakarta Conventional Center. And the second interview question by asking, how is the activity affect you? And here the result, and I quote, I think every workshop or teacher training I have followed has had the different effect. I mean, it doesn't mean, for example, workshop A gives the benefit and workshop B doesn't give me anything. All of the training gives me many things to learn. Maybe I should give the example teach training I've joined last time. The first one is about how to treat a student in Garut. For example, mobile phone, it is not always allowed in all school when the student bring it or play it in the school. But in Pesantren Walas Asi, I have learned about modern teaching learning. They use mobile phone and laptop during teaching learning activities. The most impressive thing is about giving punishment and reward. The speaker said, when we give the student punishment, it should be related to the mistake they did. For example, when the student come late, we should give them a punishment like tomorrow you should come before 7. But we must not give the punishment like you should clean the toilet. It doesn't relate to the mistake. And for the reward, the teacher sometimes give them the voucher or point which the student can use for buying something in the canteen. For me, the workshop is always bring the good and new. The issue didn't make me bored talking about the new era and all about the problems. It's really good for us to always follow seminar, workshop, or teacher training to upgrade ourselves. And it must be very good because every time will be different condition exactly in education. And interview question number 3 by asking how the important is the activity to you? And the result, and I quote, it's really important for all teachers in the world because when I feel like to show the capability, also when I joined the workshop related to upgrading my professional in teaching, it was really good. Without joining anything, we will stuck and left behind. Now we go to the discussion. The teacher participated in many workshops, seminars, and teach trainings to upgrade her teaching ability. Workshop, seminar, and teach training are affected her to learn more the current teaching issues. The teacher believes that all workshops, seminars, and teacher trainings always bring something good and new for teaching. And this is my position, a critical that might the cognitive element leads the teachers to be a professional teachers. Many teachers who participate, many values that the teachers got. The certificate that the teacher gets through seminar, workshop, and teacher training is one proof that the teacher has the ability, experience, and broad insight into teaching.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone, my name is Ihsan Solihin. Allow me to continue the discussion about teachers' perception on professional development. Let's focus on the third part of these components. It's all about the learner's understanding, which is the focus on my discussion. So, to begin with, this is the understanding the learners, which means the teacher's knowledge of learners in terms of the learner's affective or cognitive states. And moving on to the question that were proposed in the interview, there are a lot of questions asked actually, but as you see, the main focuses are on these three questions, and these are aimed at investigating the teacher's perception on understanding the learners as a part of promoting the professional development. Moving on to the first response about how the teacher perceives the significance of understanding the learners. As a teacher, she perceives that understanding the learners is very important so that she could design the instruction along with selecting the learning materials and the assessment in a proper way. And what she has stated is actually in line with what has been mentioned on the literature, that understanding the learners can help the teachers to create a psychologically safe environment for every learners, determine each student's readiness for learning, identify multiple access points to the curriculum to increase engagement and success, and develop and demonstrate greater emotional intelligence in the classroom. And the last one is to determine which standards and assessments to focus on within a unit of instruction. Moving on to the next focus, which is discussing the kind of learners information that the teachers need to know to understand the learners. The teacher stated that she needs to know the initial information of the learners, such as their personal characteristic, knowledge background, and the learner's social life. And that statement agrees to the research mentioning the aspects that need to be covered in understanding the learners. And those are uh, personal matters like characteristics and behavior, cognitive. Then the second one is academic area containing the score, the learning achievement, learning style, and then number three is about the social life of the learners itself, how this learner deal with his or her friend and something like that. And the last one is cognitive self. Then the next part is discussing the challenge in learning related to learner's characteristic. She, as an interviewee, as a teacher, mentioned that designing the instruction that can cover various learners' characteristics becomes the issue. Thus, she tried to apply various methods that considered effective. Adding to this information, she also stated that she often talked to her colleagues, to the other teachers, as well as to the supervisor, discussing about the issue. And this phenomenon indicates that she starts to be aware of promoting the teacher's professional development that can help her as a teacher to improve the knowledge and skills in teaching. And the last one, critical point of view. This is a personal point of view from this phenomenon. So, when the teacher becomes aware of the need to promote professional development, one of the ways is to understand the learners. This could help facilitate the various numbers of students' characteristics in the class so that the ideal learning situation could be created. For that reason, any kind of learning activities, learning materials, learning assessment could contribute to the achievement of the specific or particular learning goals. I think that's all from me. It's all about the understanding the learners, how the teacher perceive this concept uh, regarding to promote the teacher's professional development and its significance. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
My name is Aulia Rahmawati. I would like to continue our presentations about teacher professional development. Especially, my topic is about metacognitive. Metacognitive is an awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. It deals with teachers' knowledge of their personality, their definition of learning and teaching, and their view of their profession. The first interview question is asking what have been the major turning points and decisions in your professional life. The respondent said, and I quote, "The major turning points and decisions in my professional life as a teacher begin when I study as a graduate student and my own experience as a teacher. At that time, my perception about teaching solely focused on transferring knowledge to the students. I was careless about what did in the classroom, their behavior towards learning, or their misconduct." She also continued, and I quote, "However, the more I study, getting feedback from my peers, and my experience in teaching, the more I feel the need to change my approach in teaching. Gradually, I was not solely transferring the knowledge to the student like I used to, but I also educating my students, which includes not only about academic, but also their characters, attitudes, and morals." Well, from this result, we can conclude that the respondent learned about teaching through self-observation and critical reflection, as well as subject matter knowledge and pedagogical expertise. Another important dimension of understanding her major turning points was her development from novice teacher to an experienced teacher. Some of the differences between novice and experienced language teachers seem to lie in the different ways in which they relate to their context of work. For instance, like she said, in her early teaching career, she only taught her students without paying attention to her students' behavior or attitudes. As she gained more knowledge, insights, and expertise in teaching during her later graduate study, she realized of how her previous teaching approach was misleading. Thus, we can see how these developments affected her decisions and made changes in her professional life. Moreover, when we talk about professional development, it tends to be directed towards teachers' own personal goals. Achieving personal growth and improving professional performance can also go hand in hand. When asked about how this turning point related to the respondent's personal life, she said, and I quote, "Personally, I feel more caring and wiser not only as a teacher but also as a human being. It also made me more fulfilled because I contributed in the development of my students' character. Besides, it made me have a clear view about my purpose as a teacher, which is to help my students to become a better person and to prepare them for the future both academically and emotionally." The results above demonstrate that her professional development affected her personal life. As she explicitly said, by changing her teaching approach to be more engaged to her students, make her feel more fulfilled, and have a clear view about her purpose as a teacher. She also be interested in clarifying and understanding her principles, beliefs, and values, as well as the nature and values underlying her students, so that they can be empowered These can all be considered as examples of teacher development from the perspective of the individual teacher, from the point of view of the teacher's personal development. And from the third question, I ask, what conflict of values have you experienced and how have you tried to resolve them? And then she said, and I quote, I used to think that I need to teach in a prestigious institution to be known as a successful teacher. This notion came from my values as an idealist early in my career. However, the conflict of values arises when I become unemployed for a year after finishing my master's program. After doing some reflection, I came to realize that my value does not determine by which institution I work or how big my salary is. I also come to realize that if every good and brilliant teacher only want to teach in a well-known and prestigious institution, then who will teach in this not so well-known institution? Besides, my purpose is to help students to learn and to be of use to the society. The result above illustrate of how conflicts of values challenge her to change to a new way of thinking. As we see in the interview above, she has a particular view of what it means to be successful. In her terms, successful means to teach in a prestigious school and have a big salary. However, when she realized how her idealist values affected her life, as such being unemployed for a year, she realized of how her ideas of success were very narrow. Therefore, the moral behind this interview is very impactful because professional development as well as personal and conflict of values can change people to revolutionize their principle towards a better one. I think that's all for my presentation. Let's continue to the next one.
Alright, so in this chapter, I will share about the framework of critical or rational under the topics of values and teacher education. When we talk about teacher development and teacher education, those are the things that are inseparable, where one thing influences the other. Okay, I have two issues here. The one is from critical framework and the other is from the language teacher education. Okay, we can start from the critical framework. In many teacher education programs, there has been an overemphasis on the contextualized knowledge in such a domain as linguistic theory, and what is needed is a greater stress on contextual understanding of actual classrooms and over non-linguistic aspects of teaching and learning. And I think this is where the critical framework plays, including in psychological factors such as motivation and especially sociocultural and socio-political factors. And in language teacher education, a debate which has become rather lively in the field of language teacher education is that between the relative importance of pedagogical versus linguistic knowledge in teacher learning. And those are evident in the interview that I have conducted with a certain respondent saying, actually, the remarkable failure for me from the teacher education is not pedagogical subject, but it comes from the literature one. I was very keen on the lecturer's interesting ways of teaching. The way he conveyed the material was so alluring and simple so that students are deeply engaged in the class. And I aspire to be that kind of teacher one day. Also, based on my experience, I feel like in the teacher education I have undergone is only focusing on the theories rather than practical. And mostly these theories I have obtained are not necessarily applicable in my way of teaching. The second question, what advice would you give to the teacher education in this regard? And the respond, be yourself, don't try, be someone else. Don't let your role as a teacher blocking you from who you really are. Meanings, do whatever it takes to support your quality of teaching. You ought to adjust to your student needs. In my case, most of the times, I stick to my ways of teaching that are not included in the provided procedures, without regard to ignore the objectives of learning. And in this conclusion, I will break down those 5 frameworks that use as a base of the interview, from the practical or self-reflection, the teacher keeping journal by asking feedback from the teacher colleges and principals support the teacher development. It can be seen from the changes of their teacher practice and the set of value the teacher holds. And the teacher development in the cognitive. 1. Teacher participation in education issues means that teachers follow educational developments, one of which is attending a workshop or teacher training to provide teachers with new ways and new insight to respond to these educational issues. Then the teacher is able to upgrade his teaching ability by implementing it in the classroom, thus increasing the teacher ability of teachers, and teacher participation also increase the value of professional development. Wait. From the learner, understanding learners, the teacher perceived that understanding the learners is important, that give the benefits to designing the proper instruction, includes the materials and the classroom implementation. And the second is know the initial state of learners so that the teacher is able to measure the learner's achievement. Those 2 points contribute to the teacher professional development in terms of implementing the value from the point of view of learners in the classroom. From the metacognitive one, or self-awareness, teacher self-reflection, pedagogy experience, and knowledge can shape teacher professional development. Professional development also influences personal growth of the teacher. Conflict of values also influential in changing teachers' new belief towards new values. Okay, lastly, from the critical framework, the teacher brings her own values to class rather than the particular techniques. The professional development shown here is that she committed to her own professional growth for the sake of a moral responsibility of teachers as educators. Okay, that's it. My name is Tagsha. On the behalf of Group 2, I'm signing off. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I will see you in